You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder and CEO of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified professional love coach. If you haven't checked out the calendar lately, go to wedeepen.com and you can see all types of social and transformational experiences. You'll see a lot of Tantra speed dates. Like, whoa, they have expanded to pretty much every major city throughout the United States, including Amsterdam, London, and Canada. Mind travel has some fun underwater meditation, floating concert experiences coming up as well. Murray Hidary on a grand piano, sending sound straight into your ears through the silent disco headsets, or again, under the water. Lots of new stuff will be coming out to you in 2023, including January 30th is the 10th annual Feminine Weapon Day. I may talk a little bit about that today as my guest and I are in talks of collaboration, and I have asked him to support with that event. You're going to get to meet Napoleon Gratitude in a moment. If you do enjoy this podcast, please do subscribe, like, follow, rate it. It helps me continue to produce it, and it helps more people to find it. And while I enjoy speaking to you in this way in your ear, whether you're driving or cleaning your house, whatever you're doing in this moment, what I really enjoy most is being with you in person. So please do check out that calendar. Go also, even if there is not an event in your market or local area, what you can do is in the top right-hand corner, there is a little human icon. Click on that human icon and you can sign up for a free membership in the We Deepen Circle, and you will get notified of experiences coming to you. And we will be building out interest groups around dating, relationships, conflict resolution, family, because that's what We Deepen is all about. It's shining light on the field of human connection. And I will keep weaving together some of the greatest facilitators and brands of human connection and the people that know and love the work that we do in the world. And you will get to connect with each other. So definitely check that out. So I'm here in Brentwood in California. It's a suburb of Los Angeles, if you aren't aware of Brentwood. And I flew in to Los Angeles from Austin, Texas days ago to facilitate the Dating Dojo. It was the fourth time we did the Dating Dojo, and I flew out because a friend of mine, Yosef, he's a master trainer. I think I've shared before in a previous podcast, I have recently gotten my certification in coaching. And Yosef was the master trainer over at IPEC, where I went to school. And Yosef has stepped forward and said, hey, I would love to work with that brand of the Dating Dojo. So I came out here, we facilitated the experience together. We had about 70 people in Venice, California, who we guided through a series of signature activities to create connection. And also these activities are ones to ground into all of the learnings that you read in the top dating and relationship books. So it's really good reminders and to be in connection, and also be surrounded by other people who desire to have healthy, meaningful, loving relationships. And a week before I flew out, or maybe 2 weeks before, I was connected to Napoleon. Napoleon is a friend of Emilio and Rachel, who were on the Relationship Renegades. They were episode 56. And after recording this podcast, I get connected into this group text thread with Napoleon being like, you guys have to meet. And Napoleon scheduled a time on my calendar, and we jumped on for a 15-minute call on a Saturday night that lasted for 4 hours. And we geeked out on all things connection and events related. Napoleon used to be one of the top promoters of nightlife in the Miami area. And for me, of having worked in events, I'm like, oh my gosh, you inspire people to move and to come together. And now, I mean, he has so many stories through the years of his work and experience. I was fascinated. And we're going to share some stories here today. And Napoleon also has this group called the Gratitude Circle, and a master group where he has this text message that he sends out every day, which is, wow, resilience and consistency, to inspire people to create a gratitude practice. And I'm at Napoleon's house now because 2 weeks ago, after we got connected and I was planning this trip, I happened to say, hey, by chance, do you have a second bedroom? And he said, yes. So I've been staying in the house with him, and I'm excited to introduce you and share what Napoleon is up to. Welcome to Deepen with Christina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor and a pleasure to be doing this podcast with you. Really.
Let's start with your work you have the last name, you took on the last name Gratitude. How did this practice of gratitude begin for you personally? And then, this is making perfect sense now that we've just talked about our designs. Of course, when you created your gratitude practice, you had to share it with everybody in the world. And that's essentially why that you now have hundreds, if not thousands of people a part of this gratitude practice with you. Makes perfect sense.
Yes. Actually, 18,000 people receive my text messages every day. These exercises, these gratitude exercises that I do, and it all started about 9 years ago. I think I told you, I started a tech company and I raised money for it. I raised $500,000 for it from family and friends. And we were doing, really great, I thought. And then a year later, I ran out of money. I thought that $500,000 wasn't never going to run out. But you'd be surprised. Anyway, so when I ran out of money, I couldn't raise any more money. And I put all my savings into my company. And then I put all my credit cards into it. And then I ran out of my money again. And I took out loans against some of the real estate that I own. And I ran out of money again. And this time, I got an eviction notice from my place in Brentwood. And I was married at that time, and I have my son was 6 years old, and all I could think about was, my son cannot be homeless. He's 6 years old, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to scar him for life. So I'm going to have to commit suicide so he can get the life insurance policy. And, at this point, I think that if any life insurance companies hear me, and I've shared this story so often and so much, they're probably going to be like, no policy for you. We know what you're going to do. Anyway, but then I remember an early mentor telling me that people who commit suicide are people who will seek a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to commit suicide. I went home that night. I got down on my knees, and I said, God, if there's a God, because at this point I don't know anything, show me a different way, because my way is not working. And in that absolute surrender, my mind, my eye went to this gratitude process that a friend of mine had given me a couple of months prior. I never even bothered to do that, because I didn't really care. And I got that process, that gratitude process, and I started doing it that night, like my life depended on it, because it did. And 3 weeks into it, I met John McAfee from McAfee Antivirus, for those of you who don't know, the infamous John McAfee. And he agreed to become my partner. And we basically started doing this, and I raised another $25,000 a few weeks later. And then a few weeks later, I raised $500,000. And all my friends are going, oh my God, Napoleon, it's the gratitude work. Oh my God, can you send me the exercises? And in February of 2015, I started this gratitude text group. And I said, I'll send you the exercises every night, and we all do them the following day. And this is 2 friends of mine and myself, right? So I start sending them the exercises. Now that group has grown to 18,000 people now, because they asked me to add their friends, and their friends asked me to add their friends, and their friends asked me to add their friends, and that's how it's grown. It's like mushroomed. And but in the back of my head, there was this little voice that would say, maybe you just got lucky. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe. This little shred of doubt. Because in the face of evidence, I refused to actually acknowledge it and accept it. So I thought that there was something else at play. I thought that there was a problem, that there was somewhere else that, or maybe it was just luck, I thought. And a few weeks later, I wanted to prove to myself that the reason why I got that money was as a result of doing this gratitude work. And I started doing this gratitude work, visualizing getting $2 million in exchange for 10% of my company. And I started visualizing, and, this is being grateful for things in advance, right? So I started doing that and visualizing, and then 6 months later, I got the money. $2 million based on a $20 million valuation for my company. And it blew my mind. I was, and I became at one with the belief that this is the way that the universe works, whether you believe it or not. I really don't care. Because when you believe in something, when you're aligned with a principle of the universe, when you become at one with that principle, you don't need to convince anybody of it. People, you tell people, you share it with people without any attachment to wanting to convince them or anything like that. Only people who don't really believe in something are the ones who try to convince others of their own belief. And that was a big awakening for me. And that's how the gratitude text group started. And then I created this gratitude and manifestation mastermind, which meets on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time. But, it's via Zoom and it's in person. But via Zoom, it's, most of the people that are there are from other parts of the country and the world.
What I hear is that the gratitude process was an instrument to cultivate deep belief of what you desired, what you intended. And you and I spoke a couple of days about this idea of instant gratification versus long-term fulfillment. And I imagine, we consider these, cultivating belief is, and the gratitude, it's almost like this everyday practice, because it doesn't mean that one day that you're going to sit down and you're going to, hey, here's what I want, and tomorrow you receive it. Sometimes it takes those moments of, it's like this, how they always show those graphs of you go up and then the zigzag of being an entrepreneur, up and down, up and down, and up and down, but it's constantly moving you upwards, and you have shepherds that continue to come with you along the journey and help you, whether it's, John McKee, is that his name? McAfee. John McAfee giving you $25,000. And then, each step along the way to then getting to the $2 million is part of the whole entire journey. And it doesn't necessarily happen instantly in every moment. So, one of the things when we had that 2-hour conversation, or 4, I'm sorry, it was 5 because it was daylight savings time. It was a 5-hour conversation. I was so inspired by the stories. And that was one of the stories I was really inspired by. And I was also really interested in when you shared your Pat Allen story. And I remember Gay Hendricks. He wrote the book, The Big Leap. You're a friend of Gay Hendricks as well. I think he's done your gratitude practice as being a speaker for your work as well. He's on with him and Gay and Katie Hendricks, I believe, are episode 55. Oh, one of the greatest love stories, my relationship role models. And Gay Hendricks talks about towards the end of The Big Leap, he says that most successful people have awful relationships. And he states partly that one of the reasons is that because that we almost hit like a ceiling, like that we we don't necessarily fully inside of us really believe that we can have it all, because not everybody else has it all. So how can we really have it all? So we'll self-sabotage this one area of our life. And maybe that's not relationships for everybody, but for successful people, that can be. And oftentimes, because of that, I believe that what I've seen and where I became really interested is in a lot of the conferences and speakers and CEOs that will get up and tell their business stories. I'm always curious about their relational life because they've left that out. And maybe that's the most vulnerable aspect to talk about. But like, I want to hear about that bit and piece. And another reason that I'm bringing this into the mix is because, you know, you were sharing that you have this intention to buy a house, and you're like, but I think that this house is supposed to come with my significant other. I'm supposed to do it with her. And you were married during the story that you shared with your 6-year-old son during the whole entire process. And then that marriage did come to an end. And during that time, you went to visit Dr. Pat Allen. And for those listening, Dr. Pat Allen is, she's a kick. She's about 90 years old at this moment in time. She's kind of, who's the other really well-known doctor who, the sex therapist in New York, Dr. Ruth. She's like a different type of version of Dr. Ruth. And Pat Allen used to host these meetups. The first Monday monthly in Culver City, about 70 people would gather into a space, and Dr. Pat Allen would do hot seat coaching. People would sign up on the whiteboard, and she'd pull them up one at a time. They'd sit on the hot seat for about 3 to 5 minutes. They'd reveal the problem, and Dr. Pat Allen would coach them, pretty much everyone similarly the same way. She had a very specific structure of how humanity worked and how it was. And I was always fascinated because I would look around them and be like, wow, all these people are pretty much over the age of 30. And they realized something didn't work out relationally. And now they've, you know, they're here to learn. And so you also were a fan. And Dr. Pat Allen also wrote the book, Getting to It. She wrote many books, but Getting to I Do is one of the books that I have read. And so, Napoleon, you're having challenges with your marriage, and you go to see Pat Allen. Can you tell us the story?
Yeah. So it actually started because I didn't know how to have relationships, right? And I've gone through a whole stint in South Beach of being endlessly single and just having meaningless relationships, quote unquote. I don't know if that they're called relationships, but and when I moved to LA, I left a lot of stuff behind in South Beach, and I said, I recognized I did a transformational seminar, and I recognized in that seminar that I didn't know how to have relationships, and so I went to Pat Allen for a year. Every Monday night for a year, I sat there with 100 people, 70% women, so that was really good. So I sat there and I listened and I listened and I listened, and then I ended up finding, my wife. I ended up this woman from New York, and I ended up together, and we ended up getting married. And I thought that I was in love. I thought that I was in love, that this was the love of my life and all that. And then we had a kid, and my son, who's like the love of my life, and what happened was that 3 years into that marriage, I thought there's something wrong here. So I'm going to go and see Pat Allen. So I made an appointment with Pat Allen and made an appointment with her. And she said, and, basically her assistant said, well, you're going to have you have a 30-minute appointment. And I said, what about an hour? She goes, she doesn't do appointments for an hour. And I said, what do you mean? Standard, 50-minute standard therapist, right? And she goes, no. This is Pat Allen. And I go, okay, great. So I go there and she says, so what's going on now? And I said, well, I've been married and I think my marriage is in trouble because I see other women and I want to have sex with them. And she says, oh, okay. Well, that's because you're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. And I said, what do you mean? Mammals are not meant to be monogamous. And 95% of all mammals are not meant to be monogamous. And human beings are included in that group. And I said, really? Yeah, so I invite you to either have an affair, look for someone to have an affair with, or hire a prostitute. And I'm, at this point, I'm thinking, is this a Twilight Zone? Am I on candid camera? I mean, what's going on? My jaw was on the floor, and she says, is there anything else? And I said, no. And she goes, okay, it's 7 minutes, so I'll just charge you for 15 minutes. And basically, that's how I ended up 10 minutes, and that's all it lasted. This session lasted 10 minutes. And, and I had a mentor, I had a spiritual mentor at that time, and, I talked to him, and he laughed, and he says, oh, she's such a hoot. And he said, do what's conscious. But, when you say that to someone, do what's conscious, and that other person, meaning who I was at that point, I had a lot of knowledge, but I was very unconscious. I had read every spiritual book. I had gone to every transformational seminar. I'd gone to every spiritual circus that ever came into town. I've done it all, and I didn't even understand what being conscious meant. And I said, okay, great, whatever. And I ended up taking Pat Allen's advice, and that's how my marriage ended. And I realize now, I look back to that now, and I realize that that is not necessarily the case. That human nature to not be monogamous is not necessarily true. Because I'm proving it now. Because I become, through the process of this gratitude process that I've been doing now for 8 years, every single day, it's completely rewired my brain. And it's completely let go of all this stuff that I used to think that it was necessary. And all the self-worth that I've attained as a result of doing this gratitude work, it's shown me that it's actually possible to have a relationship that's absolutely monogamous, committed, and extraordinary. And that's what I'm looking for. And now I know, I recognize the signs. I recognize when someone's not really there. I recognize, and here's the thing that's very difficult to get there, because most people think that they're going to go to a seminar, they're going to hear something, they're going to read a book, they're going to take a pill, they're going to do something that's going to change the way that they see these things. And it's really so deeply embedded in their brain that that's actually the biggest issue. The biggest issue is that we believe all these things that we made up by the time we were 7 years old that are not entirely true. So, so now, having sacrificed that marriage, I now understand relationships, and I don't seek immediate gratification anymore. I don't seek that anymore in someone. I want to get to know someone really well before I jump into bed with them. For a man, that's like, so, that's like unheard of, right? Because men normally, are like thinking about that. I don't want to even have any sex with someone if I don't feel the connection, because I don't want my energy to be tainted. I want to be completely clear, because the person that I'm seeking is completely clear. And we only attract who we are. We don't attract what we want or what we attract, only what we are.
Yeah, and only attract it for the period of time until we change. And we're constantly changing. So we're moving through these different phases and stages in each and every moment. And there is I appreciate of your feelings about monogamy and where you have kind of journeyed into that is actually possible for you. And I remember reading in the past how each and every human being has everything, as a whole universe, a whole world inside of us. And that can take a lifetime to discover, and like going to the process of depth. When we first connected, I remember sharing with you about the show Love is Blind. And now you've been geeking out on the show as well. I recently finished season 3, which is the newest Love is Blind series. And there was a young woman on the show, Colleen. And early in the show, it was that this, what the editing was bringing up with her was that she wanted to remain surface. She didn't want to get vulnerable or go deep. But I could see that as the show progressed and as her journey progressed, and when she was with a person that she began to feel safe and comfortable with, you could see that there was no way that this woman was avoiding going deeper. But there is the fear of it. And what it does require is a willingness to stick with the other person through the journey and a willingness to do the work together. It's like we go through these transformational courses and we do these practices, these self-development practices. But when you are in relationship to another person, there's a whole bunch of we care practices that you can participate in. And that's what I'm really interested through We Deepen, is getting the world to become aware of that. When you are in connection with another person, it's not just therapy or sex parties. There's actually a lot of other things that you can do, from retreats to intimacy workshops, to even working with coaches that will guide you through that specific journey together. You had the opportunity to join for the dating dojo the other day to see what it was all about. I definitely wanted you in the space and to hear your feedback and your thoughts, especially as we're in these talks of how we best collaborate together so we can understand each other's work. And I had the opportunity to speak at your gratitude circle on the past Tuesday as well. What, coming out of the dating dojo, what was the dating dojo like for you?
It was such a new experience for me, I've done speed dating once because I thought that was really ridiculous. I'm on a couple of dating apps and all of that, but the interaction with the dating dojo, I thought that was very unique. It's so conducive to actually finding someone with or people who are like-minded, much more conducive to that, much more conscious, much more connected in a way, because it's not about finding out what that person is and what they do for work and all of that. It's much more conscious, much more connected. I thought that it was very unique. I thought that the potential is really immense. I thought that, more people should do events like this. More people should attend events like this, because they're going to find, even if they don't find someone within that event, they're going to find out things about themselves and new ways of looking at dating someone. And I believe that there's no wasted experience. Everything either helps us to grow or to see where you don't want to go, right? So I love the event. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's interesting you say a bunch of like-minded people. I actually have progressed beyond like-minded. I don't want to be around like-minded people. I think it's an illusion that everyone is like-minded in the space. Where I think you're seeing is that they're growth-minded people. And that's I think the up level of, because if we just go into these bubbles of like-minded people, we're never going to really make positive changes in the world. I want to be around people who think completely different than me and who are growth minded as well. So we've been talking a little bit about Feminine Weapon Day. And this afternoon, I had the opportunity to share, take you through the journey of the first annual Feminine Weapon Day, which happened on January 30th, 2014. And now the 10th annual event is coming up. And if you go to feminineweapon.com, you can go through that journey and see the videos and the exhibits and the Feminine Weapon Day theme song. And I have a meeting on Monday with Epic Records, who is a record label, and they represent a list of artists like Meghan Trainor, Jennifer Hudson, Fiona Apple, Sade, and some other artists that I am excited to get to know. And I am planning to ask them to sponsor Feminine Weapon Day, to share some of those artists with us on the stage. And for this next decade, moving into the next decade of Feminine Weapon Day, at this moment in time, we've raised over $74,000 for children of abuse, extreme poverty, and human trafficking, children in the foster care system. If you're not aware, there are about 150 million orphans worldwide. There are 80 million children living without a single parent. And so when the conversations around abortion happens, and I just laugh at the ridiculousness of it all, considering that in order for this cycle of for us to really see the love in the world that we wish to have, it's really going to come from those children. If you have millions upon millions among millions of children that never experience love, how the fuck are you gonna, when they're out there to survive in the world, and be like, no, don't do it, just love? They're like, what the fuck are you talking about? What is love? So we get to, through this event, is provide children in underserved communities with education, art, and healing programs. We're sending them the transformation programs that We Deepen represents for grownups. We're sending them to kids so they get the relational skill sets. They learn conflict resolution, erotic wellness, communication, authentic relating. They get the healing activities that we're having, which we're essentially as grownups healing everything that happened to us before the age of 7, and yet we can catch them at that moment in time. That's, this type of work is, I'm so passionate about what We Deepen does, because I hands down 100% believe that it is the solution to all the world's problems. So Napoleon, thank you for your willingness to advise me, have these discussions about Feminine Weapon Day, because you were one of the top nightclub promoters in Miami for nearly a decade. 7 years. So when I share where Feminine Weapon is right now, what is it? What do you see? What do you believe is possible for this brand and this event and Feminine Weapon Day?
So it has such potential, such immense potential, because everything that you do, all your marketing materials or your videos, all the experiences you're curating, I think they're being wasted. Pardon my French. They're being wasted because such few people get to see them. And I believe that this could be such an amazing, iconic event that's so huge that people want to kill to have a ticket to go to this event. Sort of like
Taylor Swift, whose Ticketmaster crashed the other day because everyone kept trying to get tickets to Taylor Swift.
Right. Exactly. This could be that iconic event. There's an event that takes place in New York City. It's called Robin Hood, and they raise millions of dollars every time they have this event. And that should be the case for Feminine Weapon. This is much more important. This is because this goes to benefit the forgotten ones. These poor kids that basically have no chance to have a life, because this is in the third world. They really have no life. They have no chance to actually evolve into anything else, because the abuse and the and the suppression and the oppression is so great. And I think that this is really a great vehicle to bring not only attention to that situation of these kids, but to have something that's so explosive, that's so extraordinary, that where you can raise millions of dollars for these kids in this. So this is, I love the idea of having the 10th anniversary one be the one that sets the stage for the grandest of events, the greatest, where people are going to feel so lucky to be in this event. Because it's going to be not only full of amazing, extraordinary people, but of so much love. Because when we show up with that, with love, anything is possible. And we're invincible when we show up with an open heart and with love.
Oh, thank you. About a month ago, there's a solo podcast, it's maybe episode 52 that I had recorded of just me by myself and sharing updates of We Deepen. And also at that moment of time, it was, the theme for last year's Feminine Weapon Day was the space between stories. And I was at that moment of the space between stories. I'd just gotten back from launching the Dating Dojo at the biohacking conference, and then had done it at Unleash. And I remember walking around the biohacking conference and all these fancy tools and technology to help you live a better life. And there I was, being celebrated on the stage, and my photos were in places, but my bank account, I was fucking broke. And I was walking around and be like, I can't afford any of these things. I appreciate the other day of you saying, what I think it was father or grandfather had said that, if you see something that you can't afford, don't cut your expenses, instead expand your income. And I was still in the space between stories, and I recorded that podcast, and I was just feeling the loneliness of the entrepreneur journey at that moment. And I had reached out to an old friend who is the founder of The Lonely Entrepreneur. I invited him to do a podcast. He'll be on a future podcast, Michael Durham. And I was feeling it deeply of fuck, this is such a big vision. I know there's people around me supporting me, but sometimes you can just feel in it by yourself. And everything that I heard you say and reflect back to me, and your openness and your willingness to expand my vision and the potential, and also in a way that feels supportive. I do remember years ago, I was in a relationship with somebody who he's probably the one relationship, not trying to, you guys, I'm trying not to do the whole, he was the narcissist, but he was kind of the narcissist. And he that year was like, I think that you should raise $100,000 for this event. And I'm like, okay. So he gave me a goal of $100,000 for that event. And then he kind of just left me out there. And I think he bought a $200 ticket to the event, but didn't make any additional donations. And this person was a quote unquote millionaire. So what I can really feel in this moment, and I feel for Feminine Weapon and also for We Deepen, is that I've proved myself. They say that women generally will, if there's a man and a woman going for the same job or the gig, the woman will wait until she feels as though she's got her resume and all the ducks in the row. She's got the perfect presentation, and she's like, yes, now I'm ready for that. Where the guy will have no fucking clue what he's doing. In the moment, he'll be like, I got it. I can do it. And now for me, I have a decade of experience and of the people and the support. And it's like, yes, let's go up level. Jennifer Hudson, Megan Trainor, Epic Records, we're coming. We're ready to expand and move into what, say, the Robin Hood Foundation has done with millions and millions of dollars each year. Napoleon, where you're sitting in your vantage point of looking at at humanity, and as you're continuing to activate your own gratitude practice, what is it? Like, what is it right now? What do you wish for the world?
Wow. That's such a deep question. I mean, this is like, I thought I was just doing like a podcast about whatever. So many years ago, I was, when I get involved in something, I make shit happen. I like take it on and I go and like make it happen, right? If I give my word to something, I'll do it. If I tell you that I'm going to be there and I break my leg, I'll tape up my leg and I'll show up with a broken leg, but it's okay. I'm like right there because I am my word. I'm a man of integrity. And that's, to me, it's the most important thing about my life is be my word. And so I decided to create a mission statement for my life that I would only do things that are going to make a difference in people's lives, that are going to make a positive impact on the world, and or advance human consciousness. So I only get involved with things that have any of these three elements in them, right? And if they don't, I don't care how much money you say that we're going to make. I don't really care, because money to me is not a driving principle for me anymore. My driving principle is really to make a difference in people's lives. I do all of this work in gratitude work for fun and for free. There's no charge. There's some donations on Tuesday nights because we need to pay for the Zoom. We need to pay for a few things, but that's it. I'm doing this basically out of the goodness of my heart, but it's not the goodness of my heart. It's because that's my vision for my life. When we change kids' lives before the age of 7, we can change the world, because there's multiple studies that show that kids or people in general will create who they are. They'll figure out who they are and what they are in life and what life is before the age of 7. So we're a bunch of 7-year-olds walking around thinking that we're adults. But the truth is that we're living with all the wounds by the time we're 7 years old. And all those wounds, unhealed wounds, basically either repel people or attract others, right? Depending on the wound. So when I discovered that, I discovered also my wounds. I discovered all this stuff that's holding me back. So I decided that in one of these processes, that I wanted to write a book. So I wrote a children's book called the Gratitude for Kids book for kids between 3 and 10 years old. It's really 3 to 7, right? Because I realized that we get these kids to read these books, and we change 25 million of them, which is critical mass. There's a term in technology called critical mass. You reach that point, and then the growth is exponential from that moment on. And I said, we change the lives of 25 million kids by doing this gratitude practice every single day. We can change the world. They can change the world. Unfortunately, we're too old at this point to actually change the world, because our brains have been so hardwired into believing stuff that's not really true. But we take kids at that age and do that. And this is what I love to do. This is, kids to me, not only are the future, but they are the ones that can actually change the way that this world is running. This world is running on fear and fear. This is what this world is all about, right? That's why news are so, they're designed to instill fear in people, because they need to, people need that to feed that fear monster that they have within them. So they will only look for things that actually match their own belief system about something. Most human beings are not at this point, after the age of 7, they're just basically wanting confirmation of their own belief system. But they're not really interested in acquiring new information. We think we are, but we don't. We actually discard things that really don't match our own belief system many times. Anyway, so I want to transform that. I want to make a difference in people's lives, and I want to make a positive impact on the world. I'm looking to leave a legacy. Not because I consider myself to be any better than anybody else, but if we all wanted to leave a legacy, meaning by the time we're gone from this planet and we transition to the next one, to the next life, whatever you want to believe in, by the time we leave, what are people going to remember you as? What are people going to say about you? You know what I want people to remember? That he made a difference in my life. That he changed my life. That because of him, I have a different life. But because of him, these other people changed the world. These kids changed the world. That's what I want people to say when I'm gone.
Thank you so much for your friendship, because I feel such a deep alignment with you and in what you and I, how we can work together. There's like this very, well, I can feel the yin and the yang. I can feel the structure that you bring. You know, when you look at children generally, and not to gender stereotype, but there are just biological differences amongst men and women that, generally equate to like how hormones are working. But, if you watch children play, a lot of the times the little girls will be very much in a community aspect. They'll be playing house or, and the boys can play the house too, sure. But they'll be playing house in community and reading the books together and very much sharing with each other. And the men, the boys will be like, playing sports and kicking the balls around. And there is this unison of the coming together with both assets are super important. It's like they're both instrumental to the entire process. When I shared with you about Feminine Weapon Day, towards the end of the conversation, you're like, well, this year can men come? And I'm like, yes, men come every year. They are very supportive of this experience for sure. Year 5 was themed for the love of men, because I saw year after year, I would negotiate the venues with men. They would show up as the photographers. They would be the backline band. They would buy 50% of the tickets. Like, they were very instrumental in the entire process. So there's this deep alignment, and that's really where I'm most interested in relationships now at this point in my life. I'm not interested in, I don't need really more friends. I want more partners to achieve this mission that you speak about, this legacy. It's almost like this shared legacy and alignment, because human beings, we need each other. We cannot do this alone. And so these armies of coming together, whether it's through brands like Feminine Weapon, We Deepen, or another entity. I also, want to encourage, and of course, here I am the brand owner, but encourage that. So oftentimes people feel as though they move into a new city and they're like, I'm going to start this new thing. And I'm like, well, look around and see what has already begun, and where can you join forces to actually amplify something that is already pre-existing, and bring your zone of genius and bring your contributions and bring your gifts. Because, hey, in order to really combat the darkness of the world, unification does need to happen, and us needing to come together and work together. You do also, Napoleon, represent this. I can feel it into your deep core. And I remember this is something that has been a value of We Deepen and Feminine Weapon. It's the desire to receive for the sake of sharing. And I remember years ago, I was studying Kabbalah, and one of my Kabbalah teachers, David Guillaume, I was telling him, like, David, I don't really care about being rich. Like, it's not that I don't need much. And he's like, yeah. And Christina, you know that the more you have, the more that you can give. So if you're rich as fuck, you can imagine how much you can share with the world. And that's not just through money. It's through resources, through knowledge, through your wisdom. Like, the more you have, the people, the network, the greater your network is. It's like, I love collecting people so I can introduce those people to other people. It's like, the more you have, the more that you can share. And as we continue to unify as whether that's that's the more of coming together and the ripple effects that get to be sent out into the world. Napoleon, it's been so fun to have this conversation with you and to continue to collaborate with you. And thank you for sharing your voice on Deepen with Christina. Is there anything that you would like to, like if somebody who's listening to this does want to join the gratitude circle, I'm calling it a circle. I know you call it a text or a mastermind, but I like the circle. So I've called it the circle throughout this podcast. How do they become a part of that?
Well, they can DM me via Instagram. I'm on Napoleon Gratitude. Is my name on? Make sure you spell Napoleon correctly. Napoleon has Napoleon Gratitude, and just they can DM me. They can ask me to put them to add them to the gratitude text group, and that's it. Thank you so much. It's been such an amazing experience to be here with you and share this and open myself up to you and to your audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I will definitely share Napoleon's Instagram in the description of this podcast. So feel free to just go ahead and click that straight to his Instagram. And potentially maybe the gratitude practice could be a space within the We Deepen circle in the future. Let's pin that, put a seed there. Thank you everybody for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. Reminder, go to wedeepen.com, check out the events, to become a member. It's free for now, so definitely join in the system. You will get a weekly digest email every Thursday that will get sent out and tell you all the happenings that will happen within the network as it continues to grow and such. You'll be one of the first people there. I think there's like 350 people there right now, maybe 400. So be one of the first. And again, please do like, subscribe, follow, rate this podcast. You can see that both on Spotify and Apple and whatever network it is. Thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, I love you. Bye.